Attention, you're about to discover one of the most surprising stories of World War II, a profound account based on rare documents and forgotten testimonies. Before we begin, tell us in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. And if you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel. Now turn up the volume and dive with us into this investigation. The folders had remained untouched for decades in the National Archives. Yellowed papers, forgotten photographs and handwritten notes from the winter of 1944. Military historians had largely overlooked them. Classified documents about a specialized unit that officially never existed. The 452nd Specialized Reconnaissance and Elimination Division. A small group of African-American soldiers trained as elite marksmen and deployed in Europe with a singular mission: eliminate high-ranking Nazi officers from impossible distances. Their existence was deliberately obscured, their achievements unacknowledged, and their story buried beneath layers of military secrecy until now. Colonel Walter Prescott Hayes, a distinguished military historian from Columbia University, discovered the first evidence in 1967. I was researching African-American contributions to World War II when I found references to exceptional marksmanship scores at Camp Livingston, he noted in his journal. Names repeatedly appearing in training records, then vanishing entirely from deployment documentation, as if they had simply ceased to exist. What Colonel Hayes uncovered would challenge the accepted narrative of black soldiers' roles in World War II. The evidence suggested a classified unit of elite snipers deployed behind enemy lines in Europe, systematically eliminating Nazi leadership with deadly precision. Their mission was hidden even from other American troops. The unit was formed in November of 1943, during a period when the United States Armed Forces remained segregated. African Americans served in separate units, often relegated to support roles. But intelligence reports from Europe had identified a critical weakness in German operations: high-ranking officers who insisted on inspecting forward positions. This presented an opportunity, if marksmen with exceptional skill could be deployed to exploit it. Major General Benjamin O. Davis, the highest-ranking black officer in the American military, proposed a radical solution: select the finest African-American marksmen for specialized training. The selection process was rigorous. From thousands of black soldiers, 23 were chosen based on exceptional marksmanship, physical stamina, and psychological evaluations. They came from diverse backgrounds: sharecroppers from Alabama, factory workers from Detroit, teachers from New York, hunters from Louisiana. What united them was extraordinary skill with a rifle. According to declassified training records, each man could consistently hit targets at 900 yards, far exceeding standard military requirements. Their commander, Captain Isaiah Montgomery, a West Point graduate whose military career had been stunted by racial barriers, recognized that these men possessed skills that transcended the prejudices of their time. The training program at Camp Livingston in Louisiana was unlike any other in the military. The men were isolated from other units, trained in specialized techniques developed specifically for long-distance elimination of high-value targets. They learned to remain hidden for days, study German command protocols, identify officer insignia at distance, calculate wind resistance, and execute clean shots under extreme pressure. These men were not just trained as marksmen, wrote Captain Montgomery in his personal journal. They were being transformed into psychological weapons, invisible, patient, and devastating in their precision. First Sergeant James Wellington Robinson from Chicago, Illinois, emerged as the natural leader among the snipers. A former police officer and shooting competition champion, Robinson had enlisted immediately after Pearl Harbor, only to find himself assigned to quartermaster duties. His marksmanship scores had caught attention, earning him a place in this secretive unit. "We knew what this meant," he later wrote in a letter discovered among his personal effects. We were being given a chance to fight, really fight, not just drive trucks or build roads. But we also understood that our country wasn't ready to acknowledge us. Our victories would remain nameless. The men trained for 4 months, working with modified Springfield M1903A4 rifles equipped with unertal scopes, the finest sniper equipment available. They practiced in rain, snow, and darkness. They learned to build hidden positions, remain motionless for 18 hours, and disappear without trace. The psychological training was equally intense. These men must understand, wrote the unit's training officer, Lieutenant Colonel Samuel Bradford, that they would operate alone or in pairs, deep in enemy territory, with no hope of rescue if captured. The nature of their targets meant they would be hunted relentlessly if detected. On March 15, 1944, the unit was transported to England in absolute secrecy. Their official records showed reassignment to supply units. Their families received letters indicating they were serving in non-combat roles. Even their dog tags were modified to show different unit designations. According to transport manifests recovered decades later, they traveled separately in groups of 2 or 3, their equipment disguised as medical supplies. From England, they underwent final training with British intelligence officers experienced in covert operations before their first deployment to France. The unit received its first mission in April of 1944, 2 months before D-Day. Intelligence had identified a pattern of inspections by senior German officers along the Atlantic Wall defences. 2 two-man teams were inserted by boat along the Normandy coast. Master Sergeant William Shadow Jefferson and Corporal Marcus Garvey Washington comprised the first team. Staff Sergeant Elijah Freeman and Private First Class Thomas Booker Smith formed the second. Their insertion was conducted under cover of darkness by a British Special Operations team. According to the operational report filed by the British commander, Lieutenant James Blackwood, the Americans moved with extraordinary discipline and stealth. They disappeared into the landscape as if they had never existed. Are you keeping up so far? Help us bring this story to more people. Like the video, comment if you already knew about this case, and subscribe to the channel. Now, we return to the point where everything changed. For 6 days, Master Sergeant Jefferson and Corporal Washington observed a coastal artillery battery from a concealed position 2 miles away. They identified patterns, noted officer movements, and waited. On April 27th, their patience was rewarded. Obersturmführer Karl Müller arrived to inspect the fortifications, accompanied by 4 staff officers. At exactly 11:37 in the morning, Jefferson took his shot from 1,100 yards. Through his scope, he watched the officer collapse. 7 seconds later, Washington eliminated a second officer. In the ensuing confusion, both men extracted without detection, making their way to a fishing village where a French resistance contact transported them to a safe location. The German command initially believed the deaths were from stray artillery fire. But when the second team, Freeman and Smith, eliminated a Luftwaffe colonel 3 days later near Caen, the pattern became clear. According to intercepted German communications, translated in 1962, the local command reported, "Precision shooters are operating in the sector. 2 officers eliminated at extreme distance. No sound of gunfire reported. Maximum security measures implemented immediately." The psychological impact was immediate. German officers became reluctant to conduct inspections. Those who did traveled in unpredictable patterns, wearing enlisted men's uniforms, surrounded by security details. The success of these initial operations led to an expansion of the program. By June of 1944, 15 two-man teams were operating throughout occupied France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. Their targets were selected based on intelligence value, psychological impact, and accessibility. We were never random. stated Private First Class Lawrence King in an interview conducted in 1964, shortly before his death. The interview, conducted by a graduate student researching African-American war experiences, was quickly classified. We received dossiers on specific officers whose elimination would disrupt German operations. We studied their habits, their movements, their routines. Then we would simply remove them from the equation. Military records recovered from German archives after the war revealed the growing paranoia among the Wehrmacht command. A report dated July 12, 1944, from General Erwin Rommel's headquarters noted, "Unknown marksmen are systematically targeting command staff. Shots are fired from impossible distances with no warning. Officers refuse field inspections. Command effectiveness severely compromised." What the Germans failed to realize was that the extraordinary precision came not just from skill, but from extensive preparation. Each sniper team would spend weeks studying terrain, calculating distances, and observing targets before taking a single shot. The psychological warfare element of the unit's mission exceeded expectations. According to a Strategic Services Unit assessment from August of 1944, German command structure in northwestern sectors showing signs of operational paralysis, field officers refusing to conduct in-person inspections, communications increasingly conducted via courier, leading to significant delays in tactical response. The invisible threat had created a command atmosphere dominated by fear and uncertainty, precisely as intended. On September 3, 1944, the unit suffered its first loss. Staff Sergeant Benjamin Turner and Private First Class George Washington Carver Willis had established a position near Aachen, Germany, targeting a meeting of divisional commanders. According to the after-action report, submitted by a Belgian resistance operative who witnessed the event, Willis successfully eliminated a German colonel at 1,300 yards, a shot that would have been considered nearly impossible under combat conditions. However, their position was compromised during extraction. Willis was killed immediately. Turner was captured. What happened next revealed the true nature of the war these men fought. Turner was not wearing standard military identification. His equipment and modifications to his rifle were unlike anything the Germans had encountered. Classified documents recovered after the war revealed that he was transported to a specialized interrogation facility outside Berlin. For 17 days, he was questioned by Gestapo and military intelligence officers. According to the testimony of a facility guard interviewed in 1959, Turner revealed nothing beyond his name and serial number. On September 21st, he was executed as a spy rather than afforded protection as a prisoner of war. The loss of Turner and Willis sent shockwaves through the unit. Security protocols were immediately enhanced, extraction routes were multiplied, emergency procedures revised, yet the mission continued. In the aftermath, 3 German generals were eliminated within a 2-week period, a direct response to Turner's execution. The message was clear. The invisible marksman would not be deterred. According to Captain Montgomery's field diary, recovered from his personal effects after the war, the men understand the stakes now more than ever. They operate with the knowledge that capture means certain death, yet not one has requested reassignment. Their commitment transcends personal safety. As Allied forces pushed eastward after D-Day, the sniper teams moved with them, sometimes operating 20 to 30 miles ahead of the front lines. Their targets evolved from coastal defense commanders to tactical reserve unit leaders and supply chain coordinators. By disrupting the German ability to organize counterattacks, the snipers created openings for Allied advances. A confidential assessment by General Omar Bradley in October of 1944 acknowledged, "The specialized reconnaissance units are creating outsized tactical advantages. Enemy command hesitancy is providing opportunities across multiple sectors. Yet, in official communications, the contribution of these African-American snipers remained unacknowledged. On November 12, 1944, the most audacious operation was launched. Intelligence had identified that several high-ranking SS officers would be attending a strategy conference in a chateau near Cologne. 3 sniper teams infiltrated the area 2 weeks in advance, establishing concealed positions at extreme distances. According to the operational plan recovered from declassified files in 1966, the teams would fire simultaneously, creating maximum psychological impact. At precisely 15:27 hours, 6 shots were fired within a 10-second window. 4 SS officers, including 2 generals, were eliminated. In the ensuing chaos, all 3 teams extracted successfully. The psychological impact of the Cologne operation was profound. A decoded German communication from November 15th stated, "Unknown enemy assets are targeting leadership with unprecedented precision. All strategy sessions to be conducted in underground facilities. Officer movements to be randomized and concealed." The German command structure was adapting, but the damage to morale had been done. Field officers began refusing assignments to active sectors where the phantom marksmen were believed to operate. According to captured documents, some officers requested transfers to the Eastern Front, preferring to face Soviet forces rather than the invisible threat that struck without warning. The winter of 1944 brought new challenges. As weather conditions deteriorated, maintaining concealed positions became increasingly difficult. Teams operated in snow and sub-freezing temperatures, sometimes remaining motionless for 20 hours at a stretch. "The cold was our true enemy," wrote Staff Sergeant Nathaniel Douglas in a letter that never reached his family, discovered in military archives in 1968. "We learned to control our breathing so our exhalations wouldn't give away our positions. We developed techniques to prevent frostbite without moving. The Germans never realized that their greatest protection was the weather." Despite the challenges, operations continued through the winter. The Battle of the Bulge in December created new opportunities as German officers were forced to move into forward positions to coordinate the offensive. In a 2-week period, the sniper teams eliminated 14 field-grade officers, contributing significantly to the communication breakdown that hampered the German advance. A tactical assessment from Allied intelligence noted enemy command cohesion severely compromised in southern sectors. Field officers operating with extreme caution, limiting effective tactical control. By February of 1945, German forces were in retreat across all fronts. The sniper teams shifted their focus to eliminating officers organizing rearguard actions that could slow the Allied advance. Operating now with greater support from regular army units, the teams received improved intelligence and extraction options. Yet they remained separate, their existence still officially denied. According to personnel records, all 23 original members of the unit remained assigned to quartermaster and transportation units on paper, even as they continued their specialized operations deep behind enemy lines. As the war in Europe approached its conclusion, the unit received new orders, documents signed by Supreme Allied Commander Dwight D. Eisenhower in March of 1945 authorized a final series of operations targeting high-value Nazi leadership attempting to escape justice. The snipers were deployed along likely escape routes through the Alps and northern Italy. During this period, they operated in direct coordination with OSS and British intelligence units tracking Nazi officials. Their final confirmed operation occurred on April 28, 1945, when a 2-man team eliminated an SS general attempting to reach Switzerland with looted art and gold. With Germany's surrender on May 7, 1945, the unit was immediately disbanded. The snipers were ordered to surrender their specialized equipment and rejoin their official units. All operational records were classified at the highest level. The men were sworn to secrecy under threat of court-martial. "We returned to being truck drivers and cooks on paper," First Sergeant Robinson wrote in his private journal, "as if the previous year had never happened, as if those shots had never been fired, as if those men had not risked everything. They received no public recognition, no special commendations. Their contribution to the Allied victory remained a closely guarded secret. The story might have remained buried forever if not for Dr. Margaret Winthrop, a military historian researching African-American contributions to World War II. In 1963, while interviewing veterans for an oral history project, she noticed inconsistencies in the accounts of several former soldiers. They would describe their service in supply units, she noted in her research journal, then occasionally reference locations or events that supply units would never have encountered. Her curiosity piqued, Dr. Winthrop began a systematic review of unit deployment records, identifying discrepancies that suggested the existence of a classified operation involving African-American soldiers. In 1965, Dr. Winthrop submitted a Freedom of Information Act request for records related to specialized training of African-American soldiers at Camp Livingston. The initial response was a denial that such records existed. Undeterred, she expanded her research, interviewing families of veterans, collecting private letters and journals, and cross-referencing them with known military operations. The breakthrough came when she discovered a training photograph showing 12 African-American soldiers with specialized sniper rifles, a photograph that had been misfiled in archives related to quartermaster operations. Armed with this evidence, Dr. Winthrop approached Colonel Hayes at Columbia University, who used his military connections to gain access to classified files. Together, they compiled enough evidence to force a limited acknowledgement from the Department of Defense. In 1967, a brief statement was issued confirming that specialized reconnaissance operations involving African-American personnel were conducted in the European theater, though specific details remained classified. This narrow opening was enough for Hayes and Winthrop to continue their research, gradually reconstructing the history of the unit through fragmented records and surviving veteran accounts. The most comprehensive account came from Master Sergeant William Jefferson, who broke his silence in 1968 after learning he had terminal cancer. In a 70-page memoir dictated to his son, Jefferson detailed the unit's formation, training, and operations. "We knew we were making history," he stated, "but we also knew that history would never know about us. We accepted that. We didn't fight for recognition. We fought because it was our duty, our country, our world that was at stake. And we fought to prove what we already knew, that the color of a man's skin has nothing to do with his courage, his skill, or his love of country." After Jefferson's testimony became public, other surviving members of the unit began to share their experiences. Private First Class Thomas Smith, who had become a mathematics teacher after the war, provided detailed accounts of the techniques developed for extreme long-distance shooting. "We weren't just snipers," he explained in an interview conducted in 1969. "We were mathematicians, physicists, meteorologists. We calculated bullet drop over unprecedented distances, factoring in humidity, temperature, wind speed, even the rotation of the Earth for the longest shots. We developed techniques that wouldn't become standard in military marksmanship training for another 20 years. The full operational record of the unit remained classified until 1997, when a comprehensive declassification of World War II records finally revealed the extent of their impact. German military historians, reviewing the declassified American records, confirmed what their own archives had suggested: a systematic pattern of precision eliminations that had significantly disrupted Wehrmacht command effectiveness in Western Europe. Professor Heinrich Müller of the German Military History Institute noted in his assessment, "The psychological impact of these operations cannot be overstated. The German command structure operated under constant fear of invisible marksmen. This fear influenced tactical decisions throughout the latter stages of the war, invariably to the advantage of Allied forces. By the time the full story emerged, most members of the unit had passed away, never receiving formal recognition for their service. In 2003, a posthumous unit citation was finally issued, acknowledging that the 452nd Specialized Reconnaissance and Elimination Division had contributed significantly to Allied victory through operations that remain a benchmark for specialized warfare. Of the original 23 members, only 3 lived to see this recognition. First, Sergeant Robinson, who had become a civil rights attorney after the war, attended the Pentagon ceremony. When asked about his feelings regarding the delayed acknowledgement, he replied simply, "We never expected recognition. We expected victory, and we delivered." The legacy of these remarkable marksmen extends beyond their wartime achievements. They demonstrated exceptional skill, courage, and dedication at a time when their country still denied them basic civil rights. They operated in absolute secrecy, without recognition or acclaim, matching and exceeding the performance of any similar unit. Their techniques influenced the development of modern sniper doctrine in military forces worldwide. Yet perhaps their greatest contribution was proving irrefutably that the artificial barriers of segregation had denied America the full measure of talent and courage its citizens possessed. Today, the specialized rifles used by the unit are preserved in the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Training manuals developed at Camp Livingston have been studied by military historians as revolutionary documents in the development of long-range marksmanship. The operational techniques pioneered by these men have influenced generations of specialized reconnaissance units. Yet the most profound legacy may be the most difficult to quantify: the lives saved by shortening the war through the strategic removal of key enemy leadership. The story of the 452nd represents more than a military achievement. It stands as testament to excellence in the face of prejudice, to duty in the face of ingratitude, to honor in the face of injustice. The men who served in this extraordinary unit received no parades upon their return, no medals for their courage, no public acknowledgement of their sacrifice. They returned to a segregated nation, facing discrimination despite having defended freedom at its most vulnerable moment. Their story reminds us that heroism often goes unrecognized, that courage frequently remains uncelebrated, and that history is filled with contributions that await discovery. The full operational record may never be completely known. Some documents remain classified, some accounts lost with those who could not share them before passing. But the broad contours of their achievement stand as a reminder of untold stories waiting beneath the surface of accepted history. As Captain Montgomery wrote in the final entry of his field journal, "History may forget our names, but it cannot deny our impact. We changed the course of this war from shadows and silence." Perhaps that is a fitting legacy for men who were themselves too often relegated to the shadows of American life. Did you enjoy this story? Your support helps us continue producing new documentaries. A like, a comment, or a share makes all the difference. See more historical cases on our channel, and if you're not subscribed yet, join our community. I'll see you in the next episode.